I'm Melissa Carter, 34, and I just reported my own sister to the police for breaking into my Italian villa. Everyone in my family thinks I've gone too far, but they don't know what I discovered in those security footage files. Evidence of a betrayal so deep it shattered everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. What started as a simple property dispute has now exposed decades of lies and manipulation, and there's no going back from what happens next. Hey there, welcome to today's story. Before we dive in, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments. If you enjoy family drama with unexpected twists, hit that like button and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Trust me, this tale of sisterly betrayal and sweet, calculated revenge is one you won't want to miss. Growing up in our upper-middle-class neighborhood in Connecticut, my sister Vanessa was always the golden child. 2 years younger than me, with naturally blonde hair that cascaded down her back and a smile that could charm anyone, she was the daughter my parents proudly showcased at every family gathering. I, on the other hand, was the practical one: good grades, responsible decisions, reliable Melissa who would figure things out, while Vanessa got to follow her dreams. Our childhood home was filled with Vanessa's trophies and achievements, dance competitions, beauty pageants, and later, photographs from her modeling career. My academic awards were tucked away in a drawer in my father's study, occasionally mentioned as an afterthought. Oh, and Melissa got into Yale, they'd say after gushing about Vanessa's latest magazine cover. I never resented her for it, not really. We were different people with different paths, and I genuinely believed that blood was thicker than water. When our parents died in a car accident during my final year of law school, it was Vanessa who fell apart completely, and I who handled the funeral arrangements, the estate matters, and made sure she had the emotional support she needed. "You're so strong, Mel," she'd say through tears, clutching my hand at the wake. "I don't know what I'd do without you." I believed her then. I believed her when she said we only had each other now. I believed her when she promised we'd always be there for each other. After graduating, I threw myself into corporate law, working 80-hour weeks and climbing the ranks at one of New York's most prestigious firms. Those years were a blur of case files, courtroom victories, and very little personal life. Meanwhile, Vanessa's modeling career took her around the world: Paris, Milan, Tokyo. We'd meet for dinner whenever she was in town, and I'd listen to her glamorous stories while ignoring the growing emptiness in my own life. When I hit 30, something changed. I had just made partner, but instead of feeling accomplished, I felt hollow. My apartment, though luxurious, didn't feel like home. My dating life consisted of other workaholic lawyers who were as emotionally unavailable as I was. And Vanessa, now settled in Los Angeles with a wealthy producer husband, seemed to be living the life that everyone had always expected for her. That's when I made the decision that would eventually lead to our current situation. I took a sabbatical from the firm and bought a small, centuries-old villa in Tuscany. It needed extensive renovation, but the moment I saw those weathered stone walls and the view of rolling vineyards, I knew it was exactly what I needed. "You're doing what?" Vanessa had exclaimed when I told her. "That sounds so unlike you. What about your career?" "I'm not quitting," I explained. "Just taking some time to restore this place and maybe find some balance." "Well," she said with that familiar sparkle in her eye, "I'll definitely need to come visit once it's ready. Maybe bring some friends for a girls' trip." I laughed and agreed, picturing occasional visits with wine on the terrace. What I didn't anticipate was that occasional visits would mean something entirely different to Vanessa. The renovation took 18 months. I split my time between remote work for the firm and overseeing the local contractors who were bringing the villa back to life. I learned Italian, made friends in the nearby village, and slowly felt myself transforming along with the house. For the first time in my life, I was making choices purely for myself, not to meet someone else's expectations or to be the responsible counterbalance to Vanessa's free spirit. When the villa was finally complete, with its terracotta floors, exposed beam ceilings, and garden full of herbs and lemon trees, I sent Vanessa photos. Her response was immediate. OMG, it's gorgeous. I'm definitely coming to visit. I didn't think much of it until 3 weeks later when I received a text from her while in a meeting with my Italian attorney about some property tax matters. Surprise! We're here. The gate is locked, can you buzz us in? Can't wait to see you and the villa. I stared at my phone in disbelief. I texted back. Who's with you? And why didn't you tell me you were coming? Just a few friends. Wanted to surprise you. Come on, it's hot out here. I apologized to my attorney and drove back to the villa in a state of shock. When I opened the gate, I found not just Vanessa, but 5 of her friends, all influencers and minor celebrities, surrounded by enough luggage for a month-long stay. They squealed and hugged me as if we were all long-lost friends, while I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. Isn't this amazing? Vanessa gushed. We've been planning this retreat for ages. Wait until you see how many followers we gain once we start posting content from this place. That was the moment I should have put my foot down. But old habits die hard, and before I knew it, I was showing them to the guest rooms, explaining how the ancient plumbing worked, and watching as my peaceful sanctuary was transformed into an influencer party house. Little did I know that this unexpected invasion was just the beginning of a series of revelations that would force me to redefine everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and exactly how far I was willing to go to protect what was mine. The first 3 days of Vanessa and her friend's stay were chaotic but manageable. I rearranged my work schedule, postponed meetings, and tried to be the gracious host I'd been raised to be. They spent their days lounging by the pool I'd had installed, taking countless photos in every corner of the villa and surrounding vineyards, and turning my quiet sanctuary into a content creation factory. Vanessa's friends were exactly what you'd expect: beautiful, loud, and completely self-absorbed. There was Kylie, a fitness influencer who rearranged my furniture for better lighting; Madison, a fashion blogger who treated my carefully curated antique wardrobe as her personal costume collection; Taylor, a spiritual wellness coach who burned sage in every room without asking; Alexis, a beauty vlogger who converted one of my bathrooms into a product testing studio; and Jade, a travel influencer who seemed to be the ringleader alongside Vanessa. "You're so lucky to have all this space," Jade commented one evening as they all sipped the expensive wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. "So many gorgeous spots for content." "It's not about content," I tried to explain. "It's my home." They all exchanged glances that clearly communicated they thought I just didn't get it. Vanessa patted my hand condescendingly. "Mel's always been the serious one," she told them, as if I weren't sitting right there. "All work and no play." I bit my tongue, reminding myself it was temporary. But on the 4th morning, I came downstairs to find a film crew setting up equipment in my living room. "What is this?" I asked, still in my robe, coffee cup frozen halfway to my lips. "Oh good, you're up," Vanessa chirped, already in full makeup despite the early hour. "We're shooting a sponsored content series today. It's for this amazing skincare brand. They're paying us a fortune." "You can't just turn my home into a commercial set without asking me," I said, feeling my carefully constructed patience beginning to crumble. "Don't be such a buzzkill, Mel. It's just for today, and the brand might even want to sponsor you too." Imagine the exposure. I'm a corporate attorney. I don't need exposure from a skincare brand. Vanessa rolled her eyes dramatically for the benefit of her friends, who were watching our exchange with barely concealed amusement. "God, you're still so uptight. This is why you're alone, you know. You never know how to have fun or go with the flow." The casual cruelty of her comment struck me like a physical blow. Was this how she truly saw me? As some joyless spinster? I retreated to my office, locking the door as the sounds of laughter and camera equipment being moved around echoed through the villa. That afternoon, I had a video call with my firm that I couldn't reschedule. I warned everyone that I needed quiet for 2 hours, but 20 minutes into the call, dance music began blasting from the courtyard, so loud that my colleagues commented on it. Sorry, I apologized, mortified. My sister has guests. I'll handle it. I muted myself and went to ask them to turn it down, only to find that they had invited about 20 local young people over for an impromptu pool party. My pristine pool area was now crowded with strangers drinking, splashing, and yes, filming everything for their social media accounts. Vanessa, I called over the music. I'm in an important meeting. You need to turn this down. We'll be done in like an hour, she shouted back. Just close your door. I retreated inside, closing all the windows, and somehow managed to finish my meeting despite the thumping bass that seemed to vibrate through the stone walls. By the time I emerged again, the party had grown even larger. Someone had ordered pizza, and greasy boxes littered my custom-made dining table. Bottles and plastic cups floated in the pool. A group of young men I'd never seen before were playing beer pong on the antique table I'd carefully restored myself. That night, after the strangers finally left and Vanessa's friends had retreated to their rooms to edit their content, I confronted my sister in the kitchen. This has to stop, I told her firmly. I've been patient, but you're taking advantage of my hospitality. You didn't even ask before coming here, let alone before inviting all these people into my home. Vanessa looked up from her phone, her expression shifting from annoyance to the practiced contrition I'd seen her use on our parents countless times. I'm sorry, Mel. I guess I just thought you'd be happy to have some life in this big empty house. You seemed so lonely when we talked last. I wasn't lonely, I insisted. I was peaceful. There's a difference. Well, we're only here for another week, she said with a dismissive wave. You can go back to your perfect, quiet life after that. I should have pressed harder, should have laid down firm rules. Instead, I retreated again, telling myself it was easier to endure one more week than to create a scene. After all, she was my only family. What was one difficult week in the grand scheme of things? The next morning, I woke to find a production schedule taped to my refrigerator. They had planned daily shoots, pool parties, and even a vineyard tour with the neighboring estate, all without consulting me. At the bottom, in Vanessa's loopy handwriting, P.S. invited a few more friends for the weekend. Hope that's cool. Something inside me snapped. This wasn't about being accommodating or maintaining family peace anymore. This was about basic respect, which my sister clearly didn't have for me or my home. I decided it was time to reclaim my space and set some boundaries that should have been established the moment they arrived. What I didn't know then was that the invasion of my privacy had gone far beyond what I could see on the surface. The real betrayal, the one that would ultimately lead me to report my own sister to the authorities, was happening right under my nose, carefully concealed behind sisterly smiles and insincere apologies. That afternoon, I drove into the village to clear my head and formulate a plan for reclaiming my home. The local cafe owner, Sophia, who had become a friend during my renovation project, immediately noticed my distress. "Melissa, what's wrong? You look like you haven't slept," she said in her accented English, sliding a cappuccino across the counter to me. I explained my situation, the unexpected guests, the parties, the complete disregard for my space and privacy. Sophia shook her head sympathetically. Family can be the greatest blessing and the greatest burden, sometimes in the same moment, she said. But this is your home. You must protect it. Her words struck a chord. I had spent my entire life accommodating Vanessa, making excuses for her behavior, picking up the pieces she left behind. Even now, with an ocean between us and completely separate lives, I was falling back into old patterns. "You're right," I said. "I need to set clear boundaries. I've worked too hard for this place to let it be disrespected." Armed with newfound resolve, I returned to the villa, only to find the gate already open and unfamiliar cars parked in my driveway. Music was pumping from the backyard, and I could hear the sounds of splashing and laughter from the pool area. I marched through the house, passing strangers who gave me curious glances as if wondering who I was and why I was storming through Vanessa's villa. In the kitchen, I found Madison and Taylor mixing elaborate cocktails using the premium spirits I'd collected from local distilleries. "Where's Vanessa?" I demanded. "By the pool with Jade, I think," Madison replied, barely looking up from the drink she was garnishing. "These are amazing, by the way. We're calling them Tuscan sunsets for the TikTok tutorial." I ignored her and continued to the pool, where I found my sister lounging on a float, drink in hand, surrounded by at least 15 people I had never seen before. "Vanessa, we need to talk. Now." My voice was low but firm. She glanced up, shielding her eyes from the sun. "Can it wait? We're in the middle of a shoot." "No, it cannot wait." "Inside. Now." Something in my tone must have registered because she sighed dramatically, handed her drink to Jade, and followed me into the house. I led her to my office, the one room that had remained relatively untouched by their invasion, and closed the door behind us. "This ends today," I said calmly. "I want everyone out of my house by tomorrow morning." Vanessa's eyes widened. "What? You can't be serious. We have the whole week planned. Brands are counting on this content." "That's not my problem. You never asked if you could come here, let alone bring friends, film commercial content, or host parties with strangers. This is my home, not a hotel or a film set." "God, you're being so selfish right now," Vanessa snapped, her sweet facade dropping instantly. "Do you know how much money we're making from these sponsorships? How much exposure this place is getting? You should be thanking me." "Thanking you? For invading my privacy? For disrespecting my property? For treating me like an inconvenience in my own home? Oh, please, it's not like you have anything else going on. You're just sitting here alone in this big house. We're bringing some life to the place." Her words stung, but I remained resolute. "I want everyone out by tomorrow. If you're not gone, I'll call the local authorities and report trespassing." Vanessa stared at me in disbelief. "You wouldn't dare. Try me." She stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind her. I heard her complaining loudly to her friends, painting me as the villain who was ruining their creative retreat out of spite and jealousy. Exhausted by the confrontation, I decided to review the security camera footage from the past few days. I had installed a comprehensive security system during the renovation, not because I was particularly worried about crime in the peaceful Tuscan countryside, but because the property was often empty when I had to return to New York for work. I sat at my desk and opened the security app on my laptop. What I saw made my blood run cold. There was Vanessa, the night they arrived, after I had gone to bed, giving her friends a tour of my office. I watched in horror as she casually opened drawers, showing them personal documents, laughing as they took photos of private letters. "She'll never know," I heard her say clearly through the audio. "She always sleeps like the dead." I fast-forwarded through hours of footage, my sense of violation growing with each new discovery. They had gone through my closets, tried on my clothes, read my journal aloud to each other, mocking my private thoughts and aspirations. But the worst was yet to come. On the second night, after I had taken a sleeping pill to cope with the noise and stress they were causing, I watched Vanessa lead Jade and Taylor into my bedroom while I was unconscious. "The safe is behind this painting," Vanessa whispered, moving the artwork I had purchased from a local artist. "She thinks I don't know the combination, but I saw her use it last time I visited." I watched in stunned silence as my sister opened my safe, where I kept important documents, some valuable jewelry inherited from our mother, and a substantial amount of emergency cash, and began casually showing the contents to her friends. "See? I told you she was loaded," Vanessa said, rifling through the stack of euros I kept for household expenses. "Little Miss Perfect Lawyer, with her perfect Tuscan villa. Are you sure she won't notice if some of this goes missing?" Jade asked, picking up a necklace that had belonged to our grandmother. Vanessa laughed. "Please. She has so much stuff she'd never keep track. Besides, what's she going to do? Call the cops on her own sister?" The footage continued, showing Vanessa and her friends helping themselves to cash and several pieces of jewelry before carefully replacing the painting. They high-fived each other as they left my bedroom, giggling about their treasure hunt. I felt physically ill. This wasn't just an invasion of privacy or a lack of boundaries. This was premeditated theft from the one person who had always been there for her, who had handled everything when our parents died, who had never asked for anything in return except basic respect. With shaking hands, I checked the safe. Sure enough, several thousand euros were missing, along with my grandmother's necklace, a pair of diamond earrings, and a vintage Cartier watch that had been my law school graduation gift from my parents. In that moment, something fundamental shifted within me. The sister I had protected and supported all my life had betrayed me in the most personal way possible. And she had done it with calculated intent, bringing these people into my home specifically to take advantage of me. The decision I made next would change everything between us forever, but as I stared at the empty spaces in my safe where family heirlooms had once rested, I knew there was no turning back. I sat in my office for hours, replaying the security footage and trying to process the magnitude of my sister's betrayal. Each viewing only confirmed what I already knew. This wasn't an impulsive mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. Vanessa had methodically violated my trust, my privacy, and my home. By the time the sun began to set, casting long shadows across my office floor, I had formulated a plan. It wouldn't be easy, and it would likely mean the end of my relationship with my only sibling, but I could no longer ignore what was happening right under my roof. Before confronting Vanessa, I made 3 important calls. The first was to my firm's security consultant in New York, who helped me download and secure all the footage on an encrypted cloud server. The second was to my Italian attorney, explaining the situation and asking about local laws regarding theft and trespassing. The third was to the Carabinieri in the nearby town, requesting that they have officers ready to respond if needed. "Are you sure you want to pursue this route, Ms. Carter?" my attorney asked cautiously. "Family matters can be complicated." This stopped being just a family matter the moment she stole from me, I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. "I need to handle this properly." As darkness fell, the party outside finally began to wind down. I could hear cars leaving and voices calling goodbyes. I waited until the villa grew quieter before emerging from my office, the security footage loaded on my tablet. I found Vanessa and her core group of friends in the kitchen, mixing more drinks and laughing as they scrolled through the day's photos on their phones. "We got some amazing content today," Kylie was saying. "That sunset shoot by the olive grove is going to blow up." "Totally," Vanessa agreed. "Though I still can't believe Melissa freaked out like that. So dramatic." They fell silent when they noticed me standing in the doorway. Vanessa's expression shifted instantly from annoyed to conciliatory. "Hey, Mel, I was just about to come find you," she said, her voice honey-sweet. "Look, I know you're upset, but can we just talk about this calmly? We can make some adjustments to make you more comfortable." I walked to the large kitchen island where they were gathered and set my tablet down, screen facing up. "Let's talk about this, then," I said, pressing play on the video of them in my bedroom, opening my safe. The color drained from Vanessa's face. Her friends shifted uncomfortably, exchanging nervous glances. "You went through my safe," I stated flatly. "You stole cash and family heirlooms. You brought these people," I gestured to her friends, "into my home specifically to take advantage of me." "Mel, it's not what it looks like," Vanessa began, her voice shaking. "We were just what? Just committing theft? Just betraying the only family you have left? Just violating every shred of trust between us." My voice remained unnaturally calm, which seemed to unsettle them even more than if I had been shouting. "Look, we should go," Madison murmured, tugging at Jade's arm. "No one is going anywhere," I said firmly. "Not until I get back every cent and every item that was taken from my safe." Jade attempted bravado. "You can't keep us here. That's like illegal detention or whatever." "What's illegal is theft," I countered. And I have all of you on camera participating in it. So here's what happens now. You return everything you stole, pack your bags, and leave my property by morning. Or I call the carabinieri, who are already expecting my call, and file formal charges. The shocked silence that followed was broken by Vanessa's strangled laugh. You wouldn't. I'm your sister. Yes, you are. Which makes this betrayal all the worse. I turned the tablet toward her so she could see her own face clearly as she rifled through my safe. Family doesn't do this to family, Vanessa. Kylie was the first to break. I didn't take anything, she said quickly. But I saw Jade put some necklace in her cosmetics bag. Shut up. Jade hissed. No, you shut up. Alexis snapped. I'm not getting arrested in a foreign country because you guys decided to steal. The group devolved into accusations and denials while Vanessa stood frozen, staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, shock mixed with something that might have been respect or possibly fear. You have 1 hour, I announced over their bickering. 1 hour to return everything and pack your essentials. You'll sleep in the guest house tonight, not in my home, and you'll be gone before noon tomorrow. Or what? Vanessa finally found her voice, though it trembled slightly. In answer, I pulled out my phone and showed her the contact for the local police already loaded on the screen, my thumb hovering over the call button. That broke the standoff. Within 20 minutes, a pile of my belongings appeared on the kitchen counter, cash, jewelry, even small art pieces I hadn't realized were missing. They returned everything under my watchful eye, then sullenly gathered their essential overnight items and trudged out to the guest house as instructed. Vanessa lingered behind after the others left. Mel, please, she said, her voice small and childlike. We can fix this. It was just a stupid mistake. A mistake is accidental. This was deliberate. What do you want me to say? That I'm jealous? Fine, I'm jealous. You've always been the smart one, the responsible one, the one who has everything together. And now you have this amazing place while I'm stuck in a marriage that's falling apart with a career that's fading. Tears streamed down her face, smudging her perfect makeup. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old protectiveness, the ingrained instinct to comfort her and make everything better. But then I remembered the footage, her laughter as she invaded my privacy, her casual dismissal of our family bond, her willingness to steal treasured mementos of our parents. I'm sorry your life isn't what you hoped, I said quietly. But that doesn't give you the right to take what's mine. You need to leave tomorrow. We can discuss what happens next when I'm ready. What does that mean? Are you really going to call the police on me? I haven't decided yet. It depends on whether everything is returned and whether you leave peacefully tomorrow. She stared at me for a long moment, searching my face for any sign of yielding. Finding none, she finally nodded and walked toward the door. You know, she said, pausing at the threshold, I always thought you were the weak one, always following rules, always doing what was expected. But you're not, are you? You're actually the strongest person I know. With that, she was gone, leaving me alone in the suddenly silent kitchen, surrounded by the recovered items that now felt tainted by betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I meticulously photographed and documented every returned item, secured the villa, and contemplated what this meant for the future of my relationship with my sister. By dawn, I had made my decision about what needed to happen next. Wow, can you believe what Vanessa did? I know family conflicts can be intense, but this level of betrayal is something else. I'm curious, have you ever had to confront a family member about something serious? Let me know in the comments. This story is about to take an even more dramatic turn, so if you're invested in finding out what Melissa decides to do next, hit that like button and stay with me. The next part reveals exactly how she plans to teach her sister a lesson she'll never forget. Morning arrived with the soft golden light that had made me fall in love with Tuscany in the first place. I stood on my terrace, cup of espresso in hand, watching the mist rise from the valley below. In just a few hours, Vanessa and her friends would be gone, and I could begin the process of reclaiming my sanctuary. But first, there was the matter of consequences. After careful consideration, I had decided against involving the police immediately. Not out of any lingering familial loyalty, but because I believed there was a more fitting response to Vanessa's betrayal, one that would force her to confront the reality of what she had done while protecting myself from future exploitation. At precisely 10 o'clock, I walked to the guest house and knocked on the door. The group was already up and packing, their faces drawn and sullen in the harsh light of morning. The party atmosphere had completely evaporated, replaced by the tense silence of people who knew they had crossed a serious line. "Vanessa," I said, "I need to speak with you privately." She nodded and followed me outside to the small patio overlooking the vineyard. She looked terrible, her eyes puffy from crying, her carefully maintained appearance disheveled from a night of poor sleep. Good, I thought. She should be uncomfortable. "Have you decided?" she asked immediately, her voice hoarse. "About the police?" "I'm not calling the authorities," I said, watching relief wash over her face before adding, "at least not right now." "Thank you, Mel. I know I don't deserve." "I'm not finished," I cut her off. "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because involving the Italian legal system would be complicated and time-consuming, and frankly, I want you out of my life faster than that process would allow." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "Out of your life?" "Mel, we're sisters. Being sisters didn't stop you from stealing from me, invading my privacy, and betraying my trust in the most fundamental way possible. So here's what happens now." I handed her a legal document. "This is a formal agreement drawn up by my attorney early this morning. It stipulates that you will never again enter my property without explicit written invitation. You will not use my name, my image, or any images of my home in your social media content. You will not contact me except through my attorney." Vanessa stared at the document in shock. This is insane. "You're essentially cutting me out of your life over some jewelry." "No, I'm establishing consequences for your actions," I corrected her. "The alternative is that I file charges for theft and trespassing, which would likely result in international legal complications that could affect your ability to travel for work. Your choice." "You can't be serious," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes again. "We're the only family each other has left. You should have thought of that before you violated every aspect of our relationship. Sign the document, Vanessa." Her hands shook as she scanned the pages. "And if I sign this, what happens to us? To our relationship?" I hadn't allowed myself to fully consider this question until now. Despite everything, she was still my little sister, the girl whose scraped knees I had bandaged, whose homework I had helped with, whose hand I had held at our parents' funeral. "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "Right now, I need space and time. Maybe someday we can rebuild something, but it won't be the same. It can't be after this. So I just never see you again? Never talk to you? Over one mistake." It wasn't one mistake. It was a calculated series of decisions that revealed exactly how little you respect me or value our relationship. You saw me as something to use, not someone to love. A complex mix of emotions crossed her face: anger, shame, defiance, and finally, resignation. She took the pen I offered and signed the document with a flourish. "There," she said bitterly, thrusting the papers back at me. "Happy now? Does this make you feel powerful, Melissa? Using your legal skills to formally sever our relationship?" "No," I replied quietly. "It makes me feel sad that it came to this. But it also makes me feel secure, knowing that my boundaries will be respected going forward." We walked back to the guest house in silence. Her friends had already loaded most of their luggage into their rental cars and were awkwardly waiting by the driveway. "We'll be gone within the hour," Jade said stiffly when we approached. "Make sure nothing else disappears before you leave," I replied, earning a glare from her and a few others. Vanessa paused before getting into her car. For a moment, I thought she might try to embrace me, one last sisterly gesture before our relationship transformed into something colder and more distant. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and fixed me with a steady gaze. You know, I've always been jealous of you, she said quietly, so the others couldn't hear. Not just of this place or your success. I've been jealous of your certainty, how you always seem to know exactly who you are and what you want. I've never had that. I wasn't sure how to respond. Was this a genuine moment of vulnerability or another manipulation? That doesn't excuse what you did, I finally said. No, it doesn't, she agreed, surprising me. But maybe someday it might help you understand. She opened her car door but paused again. I am sorry, Mel. Not just for getting caught, but for betraying you. I know you probably don't believe that right now, but it's true. Before I could respond, she slid into the driver's seat and closed the door. I stood in my driveway, watching as the caravan of vehicles wound down the cypress-lined road and disappeared from view. The silence they left behind was profound. Not just the physical quiet after days of chaos, but the emotional silence of a bond severed, perhaps irrevocably. I returned to the villa, which suddenly felt both emptier and more mine than it had since their arrival. The first thing I did was change all the security codes and combinations. The second was to open all the windows, letting the fresh Tuscan air cleanse the spaces they had occupied. That evening, as I sat on my terrace watching the sunset with a glass of local wine, my phone rang. It was an unknown international number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello, Ms. Carter? This is Detective Morrison from the LAPD. I'm calling regarding your sister, Vanessa Carter. A chill ran through me. What about her? She asked me to contact you. We've arrested her in connection with a series of thefts from celebrity homes in Los Angeles. We found evidence suggesting she's been part of an organized ring targeting wealthy individuals for the past 3 years. I nearly dropped my phone. What kind of evidence? Photos, documents, security information, all meticulously organized by property. Ms. Carter appears to have been providing inside information to the group, often after visiting these homes as a guest. Your name was in her files as well, along with detailed notes about your property in Italy. The detective's words hit me like physical blows. This wasn't just about stealing a few items from my safe. This was a pattern, a lifestyle, a criminal enterprise that Vanessa had been involved in for years. And I had been her next target, perhaps the biggest one yet. We need your cooperation, the detective continued. If you're willing to provide statements about what occurred at your property, it would strengthen our case considerably. I agreed to email him the security footage and a formal statement. After ending the call, I sat in stunned silence as the sky darkened and stars began to appear above the Tuscan hills. The betrayal was far deeper than I had imagined. This wasn't impulsive or emotional, it was calculated and cold-blooded. And suddenly, I understood with perfect clarity. I had done the right thing. My boundaries weren't excessive. If anything, they had been insufficient. The sister I thought I knew, the one I had protected and supported all my life, had been planning to systematically rob me all along. The weeks following Vanessa's departure and subsequent arrest were surreal. I provided all the evidence requested by the LAPD, including the security footage and a detailed account of what had transpired during her stay. According to Detective Morrison, my statement and evidence were instrumental in building their case against not just Vanessa, but the entire theft ring she'd been working with. The media caught wind of the story, of course. Influencer arrested in celebrity theft ring blared the headlines, with Vanessa's perfectly filtered Instagram photos splashed across entertainment websites and tabloids. Her friends, the same ones who had lounged by my pool and gone through my personal belongings, were quick to distance themselves, claiming they had no knowledge of her criminal activities. "We're just as shocked as everyone else," Jade told a reporter, her expression appropriately somber for the camera. "If we had known what was really going on, we never would have associated with her." I knew from the security footage that this was a lie, at least in Jade's case, but I chose not to publicly contradict her. The legal proceedings would reveal the truth soon enough. My firm granted me extended leave to deal with the situation, though several partners called to express their concern, both personal and professional. This kind of publicity isn't ideal, one of them noted delicately, but we stand by our own. Take whatever time you need. I was grateful for their support, but I also recognized that my life in New York felt increasingly distant, like a role I had played in someone else's story. Here in Tuscany, surrounded by the warmth of the community I had become part of, I felt more authentic than I had in years. Sophia from the cafe brought me homemade meals and sat with me on difficult days. My neighbors, an elderly couple who own the neighboring vineyard, invited me for Sunday lunches where no one asked about the situation, but simply treated me as part of their extended family. My Italian attorney, Marco, became a friend as well as a legal advisor, helping me navigate both the emotional and practical aftermath of Vanessa's betrayal. 6 weeks after the arrest, I received an unexpected letter. The return address was the detention center where Vanessa was being held pending trial. I stared at the envelope for a long time before finally opening it with trembling fingers. "Dear Melissa," she had written in her flowing script. "I know you probably threw this letter away the moment you saw who it was from. If you're still reading, thank you for that small courtesy. I won't ask for forgiveness, I don't deserve it, and we both know it. But I do want to offer an explanation, not as an excuse, but as context for how I became the person who could betray her own sister so completely. After Mom and Dad died, I fell apart in ways I never told you about. The modeling career was already fading, and I was desperate to maintain the lifestyle and image I'd created. I started small, borrowing things from friends' homes, selling them to cover debts. Then it escalated. I met people who saw my access to wealthy circles as an opportunity. Before I knew it, I was in too deep to get out. The saddest part is that when I first arrived at your villa, I hadn't planned to steal from you. I told myself this visit would be different, just a sister seeing her sister, enjoying this beautiful place you've created. But old habits and desperation won out. The others pushed, and I gave in, telling myself you would never notice, or that somehow you owed me because you've always had the stability and strength I lacked. I know now how twisted that thinking was. Watching you stand up to me, seeing the hurt and disappointment in your eyes, was the wake-up call I've needed for years. You were right to cut me out of your life. I've proven I don't deserve a place in it. I'll be pleading guilty to all charges. My lawyer says with cooperation and good behavior, I might serve 3 to 5 years. I don't know who I'll be when I come out, but I hope it's someone better than who I am now. Someone who might someday be worthy of having a sister like you again. With regret and love, yes, despite everything, I do love you, Vanessa." I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words on the final reading. Was this genuine remorse or another manipulation? After a lifetime of excusing Vanessa's behavior, I couldn't trust my judgment when it came to her sincerity. I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer, neither responding nor discarding it. Perhaps someday I would know what to do with her words, but for now I needed to focus on rebuilding my life, not around Vanessa's drama, but around my own needs and desires. In the months that followed, I made several significant decisions. First, I formally extended my sabbatical from the firm indefinitely. Then I enrolled in culinary classes in Florence, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for during my law career. I also began consulting with a small group of local business owners who needed legal advice for their import-export ventures, work that was meaningful but didn't consume me the way corporate law had. My villa, once violated, became truly mine again. I redecorated spaces that held unpleasant memories, planted a new garden with herbs and flowers, and finally finished the small writing studio I'd started before Vanessa's visit. The security system remained, but it no longer represented fear or paranoia, just practical protection for a home I cherished. Vanessa's case proceeded through the legal system. True to her word, she pleaded guilty and received a 4-year sentence, with the possibility of parole after 3 years. The media frenzy eventually died down, and life returned to a new kind of normal. I didn't attend her sentencing. Instead, I was in Rome that day, meeting with publishers interested in a cookbook I was creating with Sophia, a collection of traditional Tuscan recipes with my modern legal mind organizational approach. It was a small project, nothing that would make headlines or attract influencers, but it brought me joy in a way that my previous achievements never had. That evening, after receiving the news of Vanessa's sentencing via a brief email from Detective Morrison, I walked through the ancient streets of Rome, considering the strange path my life had taken. 3 years ago, I had been a partner at a prestigious New York law firm, defined by my career and still playing the role of responsible older sister to Vanessa. Now I was something else entirely, a woman finding her own way, creating a life based on authentic desires rather than expectations or obligations. As I passed the Trevi fountain, glittering in the evening light, I impulsively pulled a coin from my purse and tossed it over my shoulder into the water. Not wishing for love or to return to Rome, as tradition suggested, but making a private promise to myself to never again compromise my boundaries for anyone, even family. The coin made a small splash among countless others, a tiny ripple in a pool of shared hopes and dreams. I watched the water settle, reflecting the stars above, and felt a sense of peace wash over me. The betrayal that had shattered my world had also, unexpectedly, set me free. 3 years passed with the gentle rhythm that seems unique to life in the Italian countryside, days melding into weeks, seasons flowing into one another, each bringing its own work and rewards. My cookbook with Sophia had become a modest success, particularly among American tourists who visited our region. The legal consulting had evolved into a boutique practice specializing in helping expatriates navigate Italian property and business law. And the villa, my beloved sanctuary, had fully reclaimed its peaceful atmosphere, unmarred by the memories of that chaotic week. I had not spoken directly to Vanessa since she left my property. Our communication had been limited to formal legal channels regarding her case and, occasionally, updates from our mother's sister, Aunt Claire, who felt obligated to maintain contact with both of us despite the circumstances. "She's changed in prison," Aunt Claire told me during one of her rare visits to Italy. "Taking classes, counseling, the works. Says she wants to make amends when she gets out." I nodded noncommittally, neither encouraging nor discouraging this line of conversation. The truth was, I had built a life that no longer had Vanessa at its center, either as someone to support or someone to guard against. Whether she had truly changed or not seemed almost irrelevant to my daily existence. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, as I was harvesting the last of the season's tomatoes from my garden, my phone rang with a Los Angeles number I didn't recognize. "Is this Melissa Carter?" a woman's voice asked when I answered. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Dr. Elaine Winters. I'm a rehabilitation counselor at the correctional facility where your sister has been serving her sentence. She's being released next week, and she asked me to contact you." I set down my basket of tomatoes and moved to sit on the garden bench. "I see. What does she want?" "She's completed an intensive rehabilitation program focused on accountability and restitution. Part of the program involves making amends to those most affected by the participants' actions. Vanessa has expressed a strong desire to make amends to you specifically." "And what exactly would that involve?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Ideally, a face-to-face meeting where she can take full responsibility for her actions and the harm they caused. However, she understands that you may not be comfortable with that and has prepared a comprehensive letter and restitution plan as an alternative." I was silent for a long moment, processing this information. The idea of seeing Vanessa again stirred complicated emotions I had carefully packed away. "Ms. Carter? Are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here. I need some time to consider this." "Of course." Vanessa wanted me to emphasize that she will respect whatever boundaries you set. "This is entirely your decision." After ending the call, I walked through my garden, then out to the olive grove that bordered my property, thinking through my options. Did I want to see Vanessa again? Did I want to reopen that wound, just when it had finally healed? And if she had truly changed, what did that mean for our future if we even had one as sisters? That evening, I called Marco, my attorney and friend, and asked his advice over dinner at his family's restaurant in the village. Legally, you have no obligation to meet with her, he said, refilling my wine glass. The no-contact agreement you had her sign is still valid. But this isn't really a legal question, is it? No, I admitted. It's about whether I'm ready to face her again. Whether I can trust anything she says or does. Marco's wife, Isabella, who had joined us for dessert, offered her perspective. In my family, we have a saying, "Le ferite familiare guariscono cum elulivo, lentamente, ma con radici più forti." Family wounds heal like the olive tree slowly, but with stronger roots, Marco translated, though I had understood the Italian. Isabella nodded. Sometimes the healing can only be complete when both sides acknowledge the wound. But you must protect your peace, Melissa. This life you have built here is precious. After much reflection, I made my decision. I would not travel to Los Angeles for Vanessa's release, but I would agree to receive her letter and restitution plan. I would read it with an open mind and then decide whether further contact was something I wanted. A week later, a thick envelope arrived, sent by Dr. Winters on Vanessa's behalf. Inside was a 30-page handwritten document. The first section was a detailed accounting of every item Vanessa had ever stolen from me, including things I hadn't even realized were missing, with their monetary value and a plan for repayment. The second part was a comprehensive timeline of her criminal activities, including how and why she had targeted me. The third section was the most difficult to read, a painstaking inventory of every lie she had told me over the years, every manipulation, every betrayal large and small. The final pages were different, not an accounting or confession, but a reflection. I've spent 3 years examining how I became someone who could hurt the one person who never gave up on me, she wrote. The easy explanation is greed or jealousy, but the truth is more complicated. I've never known who I am without an audience. As a child, it was mom and dad's approval. Then it was followers and fans. I've built my entire identity around being seen and validated by others, which made me hollow inside, always performing, never authentic. Watching you create this life in Italy, this genuine, meaningful existence based on your own desires rather than external validation, terrified me. It held up a mirror to my own emptiness. So instead of being inspired by you, I tried to steal from you. Not just objects, but pieces of the authentic life you'd built. Prison stripped away all the audiences and all the performances. For the first time, I've had to face the person I really am, without filters or followers or applause. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most necessary. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect you to read this far. But if you have, please know that I am committed to making restitution, not just financially, but by becoming someone who lives with integrity, whether you ever choose to have me in your life again or not. The letter was signed simply Vanessa, without the flourish or heart she had always added to her name before. I set the pages down, surprisingly moved by their raw honesty. This didn't sound like the sister I had known, the one who deflected responsibility and turned every situation to her advantage. This sounded like someone who had truly faced herself and didn't like what she had found. 2 days later, I sent a brief email to Dr. Winters. Please inform Vanessa that I have received and read her letter. I appreciate her honesty and commitment to restitution. I am not ready for direct contact at this time, but I am open to written communication going forward. She may use this email address if she wishes to correspond. 6 months passed, during which Vanessa and I exchanged occasional emails. Her messages were respectful of my boundaries, never presumptuous or emotional. She shared details of her new life, a simple apartment, a job at a small publishing company, weekly therapy sessions. She never asked to visit or suggested that we should reconcile beyond our careful written exchanges. Then, on the 4th anniversary of her fateful visit to my villa, I received a package. Inside was a small, carved wooden box with an envelope attached. The note read, This contains every piece of jewelry I took from you that the police returned to me after the trial. The monetary restitution for the items that weren't recovered is in a separate account, details enclosed. Thank you for allowing me this small connection in our lives. It has meant more than I can express. I opened the box to find my grandmother's necklace, the diamond earrings, and several other pieces I had long ago resigned myself to never seeing again. They gleamed in the Tuscan sunlight streaming through my window, tangible symbols of a broken trust that might, just might, be slowly mending. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 4 years. I called Vanessa directly. The phone rang several times, and I almost hung up, but then her voice came through, tentative and surprised. "Melissa?" "Hello, Vanessa," I said, my own voice steadier than I expected. "I received the jewelry today." "Oh, good. I was worried it might get lost in international shipping." An awkward silence followed, for years of distance compressed into a few seconds of dead air. "Thank you," I finally said. Not just for returning the items, but for respecting my boundaries all this time. "Of course," she replied softly. "It's the least I could do." Another pause, then she ventured, "How's the villa? Still growing those amazing tomatoes?" "Yes, actually. And I've added a small vineyard on the south slope. Just a few rows, nothing commercial." "That sounds wonderful." The conversation continued, careful and polite, both of us navigating this new territory of tentative reconnection. We didn't mention the theft or the arrest or the years of silence directly. Instead, we talked about small things, her new apartment plant that she was trying not to kill, the cookbook I was working on, the changing seasons in our respective locations. Before we ended the call, I found myself saying something I hadn't planned. "If you wanted to visit Italy sometime, not the villa, not yet, but perhaps meet in Florence or Rome, I might be open to that. Someday." The catch in her breath was audible. "I'd like that," she said, her voice thick with emotion she was clearly trying to control. "When you're ready." "No pressure." "No pressure," I agreed. "Just a possibility." After we hung up, I sat on my terrace watching the stars emerge above the Tuscan hills, thinking about family and forgiveness and the complicated paths that lead us back to each other, or sometimes to new versions of ourselves and each other that might actually be healthier than what we began with. I didn't know if Vanessa and I would ever fully repair our relationship. I didn't know if we should. But I did know that the woman I had become, the one who had built this life on her own terms and protected it fiercely when threatened, was strong enough to explore the possibility without losing herself in the process. And perhaps that was the most unexpected lesson from this entire journey, that sometimes the deepest betrayals can lead us to our truest selves if we're brave enough to face both the pain and the possibility that follows. As I sit here in my Tuscan villa tonight, watching the sunset paint the hills in shades of gold and amber, I can't help but reflect on the journey I've shared with you. Family relationships are complex, aren't they? They can bring us our deepest wounds, but also our greatest opportunities for growth. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately led to positive change in your life? What boundaries have you had to set with family members? Your experiences matter to me, so please share them in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these real-life tales of family drama and personal transformation. And if you're new here, subscribe to join our storytelling community where we explore these complex human experiences together. I post new stories every week about family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your authentic path. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and remember, sometimes our greatest strength comes from surviving the betrayals we never saw coming.